Recruitment and retention is a top priority for the majority, and hopefully today we're going to deliver on this critical bill. I support this bill because the testimony, in my opinion, shows that it will help with recruitment and retention. It'll help employees retire with dignity, and it will save the state tens of millions of dollars per year. I guess the first question is our current system working? And I believe that the testimony, and not just the testimony, but just simply looking out at what's happening in this state, shows that things are broken. Things are not working the way they should. And just some numbers. We know that about 1 in 6 state jobs are not filled right now. If you bore into the various departments and look, you see Department of Public Safety, the people that keep us safe, 18% vacancy rate. Department of Revenue, the people ensure we have a stream of money to fund our government, 18% vacancy rate. Department of Transportation, the people who plow our roads, keep our streets maintained, take care of our bridges, our ports, airports, 18% vacancy rate. Department of Labor and Workforce Development, the people who are responsible for helping make sure people get workers' compensation benefits, keep our people retrained, 20.9% vacancy rate. Department of Natural Resources, people responsible for seeing that our oil and gas and timber and minerals are being developed, 21.4% vacancy rate. When you go and look further, we had a legislative finance presentation just last week looking at specific jobs, mechanics, the people who take care of our plows, a 24.6% vacancy rate. Emergency services dispatch, 27% vacancy rate. For trooper dispatch services, it's 34.5% vacancy rate. For protective service specialists, it's 29%. Psychiatric nurses, 30.5%. Public health nurses, 33.3%. I could go on and on, Mr. President. There is a crisis in this state. We can't fill jobs. On a local level, we have over 1,000 vacant positions in education, over 1,000. What's the result from that? We've got crammed classrooms. We've got reduced course offerings. We've got schools that are looking at closing down. The Department of Public Safety Commissioner said that he needs 35% more troopers than he has now. Can't fill the 62 vacancies in his department, and then he needs another 90 more positions on top of that. I don't think anyone will dispute that we have a recruitment and retention problem here in the state. And I guess I would just add on the issue of studying this bill and vetting this bill. I remember over a decade ago when I chaired State Affairs, we had a very similar bill in front of us. In fact, we had it probably 15 years ago too. We had statewide hearings and we heard the same issues. And we've got to take action on this issue because what we see is it's just getting worse and worse. And so the next question is the lack of defined benefits causing this recruitment and retention issue? And I think the evidence is just overwhelming that it is. Alaska is simply not competitive with the private sector, we're simply not competitive with the public sector, and we're simply not competitive with other states in the United States. Why are we not competitive? We have the worst retirement system in the United States. That is not hyperbole. We're the only state in the nation that doesn't have a pension system for public employees. It doesn't have Social Security. I don't think most people in the public realize that our public employees are the only people in the United States that don't have any pension at all. No Social Security at all. And it's actually worse than that. Because if you were eligible at some point in your life for Social Security and you go and work for the state, you're actually penalized. You can actually lose thousands and thousands of dollars per year just by the mere fact that you served the state, just by the mere fact that you decided you wanted to go and teach or become a police officer or firefighter. You will lose thousands of dollars because of the windfall elimination provision. In fact, so let's look at what are we hearing? What have we heard for years? Well, we've heard from fire chiefs, police chiefs, division directors, department directors, commissioners. We've heard for years that what is the problem? A major problem is our lack of a defined benefit system. The director of DOT, Central Region, said, quote, "Our ability to retain employees really much longer than 4 or 5 years anymore, and no more than 10 years, became largely impacted by trends in portability of those benefits." we've had 11 straight years of population outflow. We had 3,246 workers leave Alaska in 2023. We've had a working age population decline for 10 straight years. We've got 2 jobs open for every job offering in the state, for every employable person. Simply put, we are not competitive. Alaska Fish and Game reports that up to 37% higher salaries and benefit packages are being offered by the federal sector. Alaska Professional Firefighters report that Alaska employees are being recruited, we've all heard this, by other states that pay 15% higher wages, 25% less scheduled hours, and offer a full retirement package, full pension package. How do we possibly compete with that, Mr. President? The answer is we can't. We've heard from the state actuary, Buck, repeatedly that recruitment and retention will be improved by going back to a defined benefit system. About half of newly hired teachers in Alaska are leaving before their 3rd year. Early turnover is a common challenge, but not at this level. Based on each plan's assumptions, Alaska can expect 6.5 years of service on average from a newly hired teacher. In Washington State and Oregon, it's 16.6 and 12.3 years of service respectively. Alaska has among the worst educator turnover in the United States. Pre-pandemic research shows that from the Regional Education Laboratory, Northwest puts annual teacher turnover at 22%. Principal and superintendent turnover is 25%. And according to recent RAND Corp analysis, by comparison, national teacher turnover and principal turnover was about 6%. We have 4 times higher turnover for teachers and principals. According to the governor's Teacher Retention and Recruitment Task Force, April 2023, they issued some findings, if I could read, Mr. President.
Without objection.
Well, among their findings, quote, workforce turnover in DC, defined contribution, is higher than in defined benefits. The percentage of workers who are leaving the teachers' retirement system and public employee retirement system has been significantly higher in the defined contribution plan than in the defined benefit plan. In the September 2023 Governor's Teacher Recruitment and Retention Task Force, they published some strategies recommending, and among their strategies was, quote, restructuring TERS and PERS retirement systems to, quote, a new hybrid retirement system that uses the most desirable attributes of healthy models that work best for the state of Alaska employers and its public employees. Consider both TERS and PERS in the restructuring process to move them between them. The governor's original Alaska working group on teacher retention and recruitment surveyed 4,000 teachers. And you know what the #1 solution was recommended by administrators? Fixing the broken retirement system. That's the #1 suggestion from administrators. What are the impacts to Alaskans because of our broken system? Well, according to ICER, UAA Center for Education Policy Research Analyst, the 5 school districts with the lowest turnover, teacher turnover, had 86% of students scoring proficient in reading. The 5 school districts with the highest turnover had a 47% of students scoring proficient in reading. This is impacting our students' ability to read. We've seen the Marine Highway cancel routes. We've got streets unplowed. I've talked to industry people who come in. They say we can't get air quality permits. It takes months. It takes a long time to get those permits processed. We got SNAP benefits going undelivered. I talked to payroll people. Someone in payroll last week. Like, we are scraping by to get payroll processed for the state. We don't have enough teachers. We don't have nurses. We don't have enough troopers. The list goes on and on and on. And so, even if you don't think that this bill will improve recruitment, even if you don't think it will improve retention, I would submit to you that we can't afford not to do this, that this bill will save the state millions of dollars. How do we know this? Well, we've got a fiscal note, and I don't think anybody disagrees with these numbers, that shows every year, first year it's $6 million, and by 2030 goes up to almost $7 million per year. That's just in raw direct savings to the general fund. And then if you look even further than that, we had testimony in the Senate Finance Committee from a professor, Teresa Giuliducci, January 16th, and this is a direct quote, if I could, Mr. President, from her report. For Alaska, the most conservative and incomplete estimated cost savings created by switching to a defined benefit plan is $76 million per year. And so you can say, how is that possible? How can you get 76 million? Well, it's reduced hiring and training costs, and then direct cost savings on to earning a higher rate of return. And what we're seeing is exactly what you heard the majority leader say is, for example, correction officers. They don't have enough correction officers. They can't hire enough correction officers, and so they're paying them huge bonuses. And then they're requiring them to work overtime. And so those costs, when they add up, are increased substantially because of the vacancies. The work, for example, another example, the work of 2 vacant positions in the Department of Commerce has been filled with contracts that are estimated to cost between $500,000 and $1 million. The Marine Highway has been unable to run a full schedule in part due to staffing shortages. The 2017 study by ICER quantified the annual loss of $20 million in teacher recruitment and retention costs alone, over $20,000 per teacher. And so the next question is, well, is this plan better for retirees, better for employees? And I don't think there's any doubt that it is. Because, first of all, it gives employees the option to choose. But when you retire, you are faced with the hard choice if you have a defined contribution plan. Because you don't know if you're going to live 40 days or 40 years. But you have to manage your account like you're going to live for 40 years. And that means you have to withdraw very conservatively. You have to manage your investments prudently. And you also don't know if the stock market is going to crash the day after you retire or whether it's going to go on a 20-year bull run. And so with a defined benefit plan, because you have the pooling of the assets, the plan is better able to smooth out those stock increases and decreases. And we also know that when stocks are managed by professionals, they tend to get a slightly higher return. We also know that when stocks are managed by professionals, they pay slightly lower fees. And so all these things compounded lead to a better outcome for retirees. Now, I'll just address the underfunding, because I know this has come up a number of times. And the majority leader, I think, really did an excellent job explaining. But what happened last time was we had a plan that was much more generous than this current plan. But what also happened was in 2002, Alaska's actuary, Mercer, made significant errors in determining the amount of employer contributions that were required to keep the plan fiscally solvent. Mercer discovered those errors, but then decided to cover it up because they were afraid they were going to lose Alaska as a client. This is all public information. There was a lawsuit over this, but Alaska relied on Mercer when making our contributions, and because Mercer said we don't need to make contributions, the state didn't make contributions for 2 years. That was $500 million. And Mercer underreported by more than $2.8 billion the contributions required by the state to fund the retirement plans. So of course, when you underfund your plan by $2.8 billion, of course you will have problems. And there was a lawsuit over that. Now I know something similar happened in North Dakota. North Dakota underfunded their plan for at least a decade, only paid 60% of the costs. And they just made a change, which I think will prove to be wrong there. This bill has, I think, very wise provisions in there that mitigates that risk of underfunding tremendously. Mr. President, I just want to leave you with one last thing, and it is from James Harris. It is who is the Alaska 2017 Teacher of the Year. He doesn't live in Alaska anymore, and he doesn't teach in Alaska anymore. He moved his family to Washington State. And here's what he said, if I could just read one sentence, Mr. President.
Without objection.
Unfortunately, the retirement system in Alaska, it was set up in a way that there was just absolutely no way for me to retire with any kind of dignity. This is the Teacher of the Year in 2017. We've lost thousands and thousands of good Alaskans. We know that 70% of Alaskans who leave don't come back. We need to keep our best and brightest in this state. This bill will help with recruitment, it will help with retention, it will help employees retire with dignity, and it will save the state tens of millions of dollars per year. I'm proud to be voting yes on this bill today. Thank you.